Hi everyone, this is Michael Christie, Artistic and Music Director of the New West Symphony. Thank you for joining us. Hunter Loyd from Makoto Taiko in Pasadena, thank you so much for joining and for bringing your astoundingly talented colleagues. This is just such a treat.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. We're really excited.
The tradition of taiko and drumming in general has various phases, I think we could call it, in Japanese history. Certainly what we will be observing is something that happened in the late part of the 20th century, but there's a great drumming tradition from Japan as well where this originates, and I think probably smaller groups, more festivals.
Yeah, so the piece that we'll be playing is called Miyake Taiko, and originated in Miyake Island off the coast of Tokyo. And their style has been very set and focused. So they're playing, and that's all they play. They don't solo improvise. It's just a set piece. And now today, they're the Tsumura family. They're still spreading this and playing this style, very traditional style.
That's fascinating. So tell me where tradition and your own take, especially in this region of Southern California, how that evolves.
Sure. So if I go back to maybe the 1950s to when it actually became kumidaiko, or ensemble playing, it started as a more religious connotation, again, where you have chanting, you're chanting to the dragon of good luck and good fortune. And later it came to the United States, and a lot of taiko players say that Grandmaster Seiji Tanaka from San Francisco too founded San Francisco Taiko Dojo and started to spread it in the United States. California later, they're actually Northern California and Southern California. You have San Jose Taiko, which in the 60s and 70s, and Kinara Taiko in Los Angeles. So from there you start to have this growth, and there was a lot of Japanese influence and Japanese American influence. And during that time there was a need to kind of play, express, and who am I? And I play taiko because not just maybe my ancestral background, but also because of the cultural significance. And so a lot of in Japan, you have festivals and you have religious ceremonies, and there's lots of influence and cultural influence from Japan that is reflected in the drumming that you see today. And over the years, it does change as any music or as it goes. You can still get influence from the source, but also create your kind of own variation of it.
It seems like such a physical demand and physical and concentration mixture. They are swinging with their full body. I'm sure there must be a technique for how the body moves and all that activity happens, but also the synchronized motions as well. It's almost like a well choreographed ballet in a certain sense, but with tremendous power, I think.
Oh yeah, definitely. And again, there's many different styles. We're playing again the miyake, which is very strenuous and a lot of endurance needed, and also even that precision is required, because this is something I learned over the years is, it's one thing to look finesse and look clean, but hitting the drum, and there's a saying too, it's one swing, one strike, and it's one sound. And even just getting that perfect sound, whether it's this style that we play or any other instrument, it's one of those things that takes just years of practice, and whether you may understand it until you feel it, it's like, oh, that's what they mean, and that's the feeling. And it's something that anybody can play taiko because it was meant to be for anybody, for festivals and such. And then when we get into this, what we are trying to do as a taiko group, to play with that mindset of that one strike, with intention, with sincerity, from the heart, with humbleness, 150%. And not all taiko is like that, but when you see the pieces that are, you'll hope that the audience is moved. And I think that's one of the important things of taiko. And there's a lot of finesse where it's more about the movements, and there's also more singing or dance. In the festivals, it's called obon, where you're doing dancing, and the taiko rhythms are very simple. You can have little kids play or the older people playing, but it's that synchronizing, playing as one. And I'd say taiko is one of the best kind of catalysts for that, to create oneness with the members that you play with, your ensemble, with your audience, and those that are learning as well.
This is so special to have the group here at the Ronald Reagan
yeah.
Presidential Library. You're all in masks to protect each other, but to have that sense of community, and the fact that you have brought the group together to the extent that you can be physically together is very meaningful, and we're very grateful.
So I was talking to the guys earlier as we sat there on the lawn, and it was very surreal because it's been 6, 7, 8 months where we haven't been able to play as if we always played, like we always played. You know, we take it for granted, and just that feeling is, oh, this is why we play.
Right.
And it's that, you know, that community, it's that oneness, it's that, it's been a while. And, you know, Zoom is not the same.
Right.
I mean, I don't know how everyone connects, but it's that connection, and I think that's the whole importance of Makoto. We're playing with Makoto, that sincerity, altruism, integrity, and we all come together to create that oneness, to create that one sound. And I think everyone, for the first time, feels that, like, oh, of course, this is why we're playing.
Right.
And
Well,
it's like a great reminder.
Bringing these cultures together here as part of our New West Symphony program here at the Reagan Presidential Library with all of you has been very, very meaningful and an important part of our program, and I want to thank you very much for bringing you and your team. Joining me today, koto player Reiko Obata. Welcome.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
It is so great to have this instrument. I love its history, coming from China in about the 5th century into Japan, and now, of course, it looks expansive, but from what I understand, it started off as five strings, and then over centuries it becomes this ever increasing up to, say, 25 strings. Tell us a little bit about the instrument that you're playing now.
Well, it's the national instrument of Japan, the koto, K-O-T-O, and as you can see, there's 13 strings and 13 movable bridges. You know, we can move them to different pitches, and we can also move them to get a higher pitch, a sharp. And then we play with our 3 picks on our right hand. It's said to be in the shape of the crouching dragon, and all of our parts are named after the dragon. Dragon back, dragon belly, dragon head, tongue, lips, everything.
Wow. So when you're playing the pitches, everything is to the right of the bridge on the associated string, I think. But there's inflection that you do on the left side of the string, or left side of the bridge, rather.
Yes, we do a lot with our left hand. We can, you know, pull it to make the pitch lower. We can sharp it by pressing down. But we have techniques that came about later, you know, after Meiji Restoration, more Western techniques. I don't know if you want me to demonstrate those.
Sure, go for it.
Oh, well, you know, plucking, we didn't even have that before. We just mainly used the right hand before about early 1900s, except for just some of these techniques. But now after early 1900s, we started with the Western techniques like staccato and harmonics. And things like that.
Oh, I see.
Vibrato.
Right, right. So pre that era, we're talking about court music, typically where this instrument would have been heard most often. What are the sounds that one would have heard in that court music setting? Would the bending of pitches be part of that palette of sound, typically?
Yes. We have Japanese techniques that are very interesting. We have scooping techniques, or swishing, or we have the tremolo, but also have, which is like wind, that's a meaning to Japanese. Well, there's a lot of techniques that we use for Japanese techniques.
Of course. And I'm assuming this is very much a mentor-mentee type traditions passed along. Are there different schools of koto playing? Would one be able to identify certain technical characteristics of a player's performance and say, oh, that's from this school of playing versus that school? For violin, for example, someone plays and holds their bow in a certain way, you'd say, oh, that's the Russian school of violin playing. But perhaps with koto, are there different styles of playing?
Well, there are two main schools. One uses the square picks like this, and one uses round picks. So you have a softer sound with the round picks. And these were created by a koto master, Ikuta, to more get a scooping technique. We have a little bit harsher sound, which the Japanese like. They are not necessarily interested in the pure note, but they just like some noise around it or sound around it.
Maybe you can play just something briefly for us, just to get so we get the sound of the koto in our ear.
This is my own composition called Crane Maiden.
Southern California is a special place. It's a dynamic melting pot of cultures and traditions.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder if you could describe your family traditions, especially as they impacted your musical development and understanding.
Well, you know, my mother was born and raised in Japan, and we would spend many summers visiting her mother, my grandmother, and that left a really strong impression on me through the culture there and the music and family that we have. And we would bring all these things back to La Cañada, where we were living at the time.
Yeah.
And I was studying violin with a German lady named Alice Schoenfeld. And, you know, it's just, I think we were always dreaming about music and what a powerful language it is and how it could just reach across the globe and be understood by everyone.
Yeah.
And you don't need to learn, you know, a language to speak music. And I think that was one of the most powerful traditions that I learned from my family. Well, like most people, everything shut down in March, so these are the first very incredible concerts for the New West Symphony and for myself as well. And to be, we recorded this morning at the Civic Auditorium, and it was just such a pleasure to hear the A being tuned and Maestro Michael Christie giving the downbeat, and it was salve for the soul.
The Suzuki method, clearly it set you on a path that led you to the world's greatest performing stages. What do you remember of those early experiences, and what do you carry forward with you today?
Well, I started violin when I was 4, And we were living in the middle of the Mojave Desert in Ridgecrest, California. And my mother was actually the one who brought the Suzuki method to Ridgecrest, even though she is not a performer or a violinist or a pianist. And she just read about the impact music has on a baby's development and the mind of a child, and how the Suzuki method is very open to everyone. There is just no discrimination. Like, anyone can learn music.
Yeah.
And that's what appealed to her so greatly. And so that's how I began my studies as well. And I had a wonderful teacher there who made sure that I wouldn't learn by the rote method that's so important to the Suzuki system, but actually read the music. And I'm very thankful to her for that. But I studied Suzuki for 3 short years and would go on tour and performed like in Carnegie Hall and the Kennedy Center, and actually shook Jimmy Carter's hand.
Oh, wow.
So on stage, and his daughter, Amy Carter, was performing violin at the time. So all that left a great impression on my young mind.
Well, what happened to me today is I lost track of space and time when you were playing. So I was very moved by what you did today.
Thank you.
You know, as the chief of technology for this institution here, I'm always fascinated to learn how various industries utilize technology. For many years, you've had a very significant presence online and have embraced technology in your work. Where do you see the intersection between in-person and online presentations, and what are your hopes for the future for each format?
Well, I've really seen, the whole genesis of the internet, and I mean, I can't believe that one is able to even post a video of oneself from their childhood, and that it's studied by millions of people across the world. So that impact is pretty powerful, that you can really reach across such a wide audience and just be in their living room and their space and mind to show whatever you're doing. But it's also a really helpful tool in being able to study past violinists and conductors and orchestras and listen to their sound, and even just visit places all over the globe. So I'm really open to that, but there's always, a flip side, and I'm very watchful of, especially my young daughters, being online and what they can have access to.
Sure, understandable.
So it's always, as a parent, I guess you're very protective and watchful of what can be learned from technology.
Definitely.
Which is kind of unscripted and unbound. So.
Unscripted and unbound. That sounds like a great place to end. I do want to thank you, and I was honored to be in the same hall as you today. So thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Thank you.